What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Swing for the Fences MLB show here on the Run Pure Sports YouTube channel. Talking Tuesday's 11-game baseball slate. Got a game wrapping up right now between your Baltimore Orioles and the Boston Red Sox. Looks like another win for the O's, Steve. But a big slate tonight, a fun one that has a lot of pitching somehow, despite like half the league going down with elbow injuries already this season. This one does have a number of pretty good pitching options to choose from. Throw it over to you, Steve. How's the early season of baseball treating you, and what do you think of this slate overall?
Yeah, it's been a good start to the season. Had my college hoops wrap up last night. That was a fun game. UConn got it home for us. It was up 5-1. Early slate's going pretty well. Kind of agree with you on this slate tonight. I was thinking it seems like the biggest main slate we've had so far this season without as many games starting before 7 p.m. Eastern tonight. Lots of pitching. We were talking a bit beforehand. Kind of hard to narrow down to the group of arms that you like best, especially after the top couple. I think that we're in agreement on who the 2 or 3 best are on the slate. But after that, if you're playing a bunch of lineups, I think that you could probably make an argument for 5 to 8 other guys that are in play for the pool. So interesting slate. Like you said, lots of arms going down. We saw Josiah Gray go down today. Seems like all the healthy arms in the league are all pitching tonight. So, it should be a fun one.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of choices. And, I did narrow it down to 7 in my article today, but I could have listed a couple more for sure that would be viable arms, but you don't want to list every single pitcher on the whole slate. So I did try to narrow it down as much as I could. I am playing 150 again on DraftKings and FanDuel. So that means I'll have exposure to a lot of these pitchers. Thanks, and pulling for you last night. I got a lot of DMs, messages. I did have a pretty good shot at the 100K. I believe it was 100K up top in the flagship on DraftKings last night. I was in 4th, and I think everybody in front of me was completely out of innings. I had 2 more at bats each for Happ and Suzuki against the chalky Yu Darvish. Neither of them did. I don't think either of them got a single point. So other people did stuff too. I'm not sure what I held on anyway, but a good sweat. Didn't quite get there, but we're getting closer. We're getting dialed in. And we'll knock that door down sooner rather than later. Frankly, hopefully tonight. So with that, let's get on to today's slate. 11 games to talk about. Let's get into it. First game that we will discuss is the Miami Marlins and the New York Yankees. This one in New York. It is the Yankees. Pretty big favorites here, sitting around -200 behind Carlos Rodon. And an outfield, man, that's coming alive. Soto, Judge, Stanton, turning back the clock a little bit, at least for Mr. Giancarlo Stanton. He's been pretty awesome so far. Obviously, Judge, Soto. It's been a fun team to watch so far, the Yankees. Rodon has been not great through 2 starts. Kind of weirdly, his velocity actually looks okay, but the strikeouts, the swings and misses haven't been there. I will say the first 2 matchups against Houston and Arizona, both on the road, about too hard of starts as he could have as a lefty matchup-wise. So maybe some upside on Rodon. AJ Puck, a pitcher I certainly had some high hopes for coming into the season, has been not great. Had that horrible first start. Was much better, but still not fantastic against the Angels last time out. He's down at 6,700, so if you're still a believer, I suppose you could go there today. Neither of these pitchers, Steve, made my list. Ultimately, Rodon was close. I'm kind of a Carlos Rodon just hater in general. I'm not a guy who plays him very often, but I do think he is in play here, especially given the 2 matchups that he's had so far. But I will throw it over to you. Good weather in this game, 65, 70 degrees. That's really the case on most of these games. So finally warming up a little bit across the country. Should be some higher scoring games, hopefully coming soon. Over to you, Steve. Rodon, Puck, Yankees, and Marlins.
Yeah, Rodon was actually one of the last guys that I cut from my article today. I did a playbook over at Run Pure Sports. If you remember, check that out. I do have some interest in Yankees here. Like you said, they've been hot out of the gates. Their whole lineup is healthy, which, besides LeMahieu, but, you got Judge, Soto, Stanton, Torres, Rizzo, all healthy. Volpe's been awesome out of the gate. He's hitting like 420.
Yeah.
He can steal bags too. I kind of like the Yankees here. I was with you to start the season with Puck. He just hasn't been able to throw strikes. It's a tough park for sure, as we know. And yeah, I don't know. There are a couple spots outside of Coors that I think are good spots here. I know SaberSim likes the Yankees a bit more than their actual team total in the sports book. So yeah, I've got interest in Yankees stacks here. You get cheap catcher. Wells is actually starting left on left tonight against Puck. And yeah, like you said, Stanton, Soto, both coming off big games. Aaron Judge has gotten off to a slow start overall, but he's hit, I think, 2 bombs in his last 4 or 5 games. Obviously, great play on any slate. Yeah, I think the Yankees are interesting here. I think they go pretty overlooked for a stack just because the Diamondbacks are going to be so popular. So, yeah, I like the whole lineup here. They've been growing on me throughout the day, honestly.
Yeah, I could see the start. I mean, Puck, I think the jury's still kind of out on him, right? Like, I wouldn't be that shocked if he kind of turned around his season and ended up being pretty good. It's only been a couple of starts. It seems everything's magnified at the beginning of the season, right? Because there's no prior data. And so you have 2 bad starts in a row, and it's easy to just assume that's who you are. Whereas if it's 2 bad starts after a run of pretty good ones in the middle of July, nobody really would even take notice. So we'll see on Puck. Despite the struggles, he really hasn't been hit hard. I don't think he's allowed a barrel yet in his 2 appearances. They've both been kind of pretty short, so that does make some sense. But yeah, I'm not going to play Puck, and I do think he seems like a pitcher who, I mean, we already saw it in the first start, who could just completely melt down, right? And you get into that bullpen early. You obviously got the power from the Yankees; they could do some serious damage. So yeah, I'm with you. I think the Yankees pretty strong play today, and I might have to play a little bit of Rodon. I know I didn't include him in the article for people that read that, but I'm a little worried I might be missing out. I do see he's going to be, it looks like, the most popular, or one of the 2 most popular pitchers on the slate, which obviously is a mark against him. We've seen fading some of these chalk pitchers is working fairly often. We saw it with Yu Darvish last night, certainly. So, yeah, haven't decided fully on Rodon. I'm not going to play Puck. And then I do think the Yankees bats look good, like you said. And then I do think decent one-offs in the Marlins. Jake Berger, in particular, if you're not on Rodon, I do think is a pretty good one-off, good bet to take Rodon deep in this game. Let's move to the next game on the slate, Seattle and Toronto. This one essentially a toss-up in terms of the line. Over under set at 8. We've got 2 righties. Chris Bassett on the mound for Toronto. Been kind of a rough start for him. Kind of tough matchups. Houston last time, Tampa Bay both on the road. George Kirby had the horrific outing against Cleveland. The Guardians did their thing to him, putting the ball in play, kind of dinking and dunking him to death a little bit, which can happen to Kirby from time to time. He just throws so many strikes, doesn't get that many Ks, that occasionally he's going to have one of those bad luck starts. I don't think I'm paying the 9,400 for Kirby here. Bassett, I do think, is interesting. This Seattle team, Steve, has just been so bad, particularly against right-handed pitchers, that any decent arm, which I do think Bassett is, has to be somewhat interesting to me. So I like Bassett a little bit. He's not near the top of my list, but I do think a pretty reasonable play here. Where do you stand between the Mariners and the Blue Jays?
Yeah, prefer Bassett here. Started the season really 2 rough road matchups at Tampa and at Houston, like you said. Now he comes home where he was really, really good last year. 2.86 ERA at home and like 4.5 on the road last year. Trust him more at home. We just used Berrios against Seattle last night, and that went well. Mm-hmm. They just can't get out of their own way to start the season. Yeah. 29th in weighted runs created plus, 29th in ISO, highest strikeout rate in the split, and the price is good, right? Like I trust Bassett to kind of go 6 innings here in a fairly clean spot. Probably doesn't have the upside of the top 3 arms that we'll get to, but he seems pretty comfy on this slate to have in your pool. in this spot at home where he was really, really good last season. So I'm going to trust the pedigree here. I'm going to trust the fact that he has been great at home. And yeah, I'm going to have some Bassett in my pool. Didn't get to any Kirby. Not usually a big Kirby guy anyways. And at that price tag, I just kind of want to load up on the other arms that I like more, but also not attacking him either. The low walk rate's hard to get huge rallies against him. So no bats for me in this game. And I do have Bassett in my pool.
Yeah, really, really Bassett, the only guy that I'm on in this game as well. Kirby, not a guy that I play often. We stand the same on Kirby, but not one that I really attack either, outside of maybe trying to pick off a home run or two. But nobody in this Toronto lineup really kind of stands out to me as a great play or swinging a great stick at the moment. So yeah, kind of Bassett or bust. Quick game here between the Seattle Mariners and Toronto Blue Jays. We go over to Atlanta next. This one, first pitch at 7:20 Eastern time. This is the one game with maybe a tiny bit of weather concern. I do expect it to play. Of course, we'll monitor all that stuff up to lock, in the Discord, all that stuff. But I do think the game should be fine. Assuming it does go, we have Adrian Hauser on the mound for the Mets, who looked okay. I guess it kind of looked like Adrian Hauser in that first start against the Detroit Tigers. And then Reynaldo Lopez, who has looked pretty good for the Braves so far. I guess just a one start against the White Sox. I thought he looked good in that one. It is the White Sox. A lot of pitchers, frankly, look good. We had a high-scoring game between these two teams yesterday. Two pretty tired bullpens as well. So potentially another high-scoring game. Certainly the line indicates that's in at 9.5 right now. Braves minus 190 or so over the New York Mets. We know what this Braves lineup's going to do. I mean, it's going to be seemingly most nights, as long as they can stay healthy, which they are fully healthy at the moment outside of Sean Murphy. They're going to put up a lot of runs. So they're always in play. They're going to be expensive. But if you can afford them, and I think you can tonight, there's some decent cheaper pitchers. They're obviously a pretty damn good way to go against Hauser and the Mets. I'm less in on the Mets side of the ball in terms of bats, but I don't think it would be the craziest thing as a contrarian stack against Reynaldo Lopez. Throw it to you, Steve, though, Mets and Braves.
Yeah, I love the Braves here. Anytime we have a popular team at Coors, the Braves will go more overlooked than they usually are. Not obviously completely overlooked because of how great they've been and how good their lineup is, but lower owned than we usually see them. Awesome spot again here at home against Hauser. Was pretty lucky in that first outing. 1.8 ERA, but 5.88 expected ERA. Walked as many batters as he struck out. Braves have a 167 weighted runs created plus against righties to start the season. That is unbelievable. Should note that Hauser has always been much worse against lefties. An xFIP over 5 against lefties, under 4 against righties, almost a home run and a half given up to lefty hitters in 2023. The Braves bats are expensive with good high end pitching on the slate, and we have Coors on the slate. But I do like them here. Like we talked about on Friday, the back half of the lineup, especially with the Murphy injury, makes them a bit easier to full stack. You got Darno, Kelnick there under 4K, Harris at 4.4. I like a lot in this spot. One of the first things I did in Sabre today was bump Harris's projection up. So yeah, love Braves here. I'll be playing them in my 20 lineups. Don't have any Mets as of now. I don't know. I haven't played many Mets to start the season. I know that they've had a couple good games in a row here. I could probably be talked onto them, but I don't know. The Braves bullpen isn't one that I usually attack anyways. And you can't play everyone on a 11 game slate. So I'll have Braves here, hoping that we get a bit of an ownership discount because of Coors, with a preference to those left-handed bats in the Braves lineup.
Yeah, pretty much everybody in the Braves lineup looks locked in right now, outside of course, Ronald Acuna, who, I just kind of got off him a little bit last night, thankfully. But I'm going to keep playing Acuna. Do you have an opinion there? I mean, he's been legitimately bad. No barrels yet. Strikeout rate is way up. Is he someone you're still willing to pay that $6,600 price tag for, Steve?
So my issue isn't so much the barrels; it's the fact that he's not running. Like the reason he's 7K is because he adds in this, 70 steals to everything else that he's done. He doesn't have a steal yet on the season, I don't believe. No, he had one.
I believe he has one. Yep.
Opening day, I think, but not running right now. I don't know, man. Like the minor knee injury, I don't know if that's lingering for him that he had in the spring. He's a tough click over Olsen, especially in this spot where lefties just smash Hauser. I think I'm Olsen over Acuna until I see him start to run again, honestly.
Yeah, that makes sense. He had taken off a couple times and, foul balls or whatever. But yeah, I totally get that. And, it's not like there's a lack of options on the Braves to go to.
Right.
And also I will say, like, his ownership hasn't really come down either. Nobody's jumping off the Acuna train that's playing the Braves. So until one of those things happens, right, the price comes down, other people start jumping off, or he starts hitting. Yeah, I'll be a little bit maybe under the field on Acuna for the time being, but hopefully not too long. I think Acuna will be coming around sooner rather than later. Next game, go ahead.
Let me just touch on this real quick. So, Trevor, what I do there, like with Harris, is I just make sure that the guys around him in price in the Braves, he's projecting higher than, so that when it pulls the Brave stacks, it'll choose him over, a Kelnick or an Arcia, something like that. So you just have to make sure that that's the case.
Yep, and obviously you can look at on SaberSim, look at your exposures, make sure, and if you need to get in that minimum exposure on the players that you want, especially. So good question and answer there. Let's go to Houston and Kansas City next. This one in Kansas City. I think this game pretty interesting on a number of levels. We've got Cole Ragans on the hill for the Royals. I think most people are aware of this guy at this point. I mean, he finished last season just incredible, all the strikeouts, and has picked up right where he left off, 97 and 91 pitches in his two outings. Last one coming against Baltimore, blanked them for 6 1/3 innings, 7 strikeouts. I mean, he's legit as they come. I've talked a lot about Garrett Crochet this year. I kind of consider Ragans is even a longer track record, but I kind of consider the two the same. Big lefties, throwing gas, performing really well. He did not make my pool today, Steve, and I feel a little bit bad about that because I'm such a believer in Ragans. But man, this Astros team, especially against lefties, just really, really low strikeout rate. They take a bunch of walks. The two lefties that they do have, we talk about it all the time, Alvarez and Tucker, hit lefties themselves really well. So I do think the Astros, I think, are the worst matchup in the league for left-handed pitchers. Reagan's 8,200. He's going to have I think no ownership. So I don't know. Where do you stand on Reagan's? Obviously, we got Javier going for the Astros. And yeah, the Royals started.
Let me talk you on to Reagan's here.
What's that?
Let me talk you on to Reagan's here.
All right.
So the Astros are going to run 7 righties out against them. He was really dominant against right-handed batters last season, a reverse splits guy. At that 8K range on this slate, I kept him in the pool. He was one of the last guys I kept in the pool just because of his, pretty much dominance against right-handed bats. Last season, a strikeout rate over 30% to righties, an xFIP of 3.5, WHIP of 1.07. It's not comfy clicking him against the Astros. Definitely more of a multi-lineup MME type play. He just dominated the O's, who I think have probably, almost as good of a lineup as Houston. 30 called or swinging strikes in those 91 pitches is just awesome. I just want to bet on the talent. I want to continue to bet on the talent. He's at home in a huge park that plays really massive when it's cooler, which it is early in the season. We actually just got the Astros lineup. Looks like their normal lineup, so no surprises there. Not my favorite arm on the slate by any means, but a guy that I just want to continue to be playing even in tough matchups, because I do believe in the talent.
Yeah, I mean, if he does it against this Astros team, I don't think we have a lineup for them. Looks like no Jordan, perhaps. I haven't seen the lineup, but assuming it's outside of that, normal. Yeah, I mean, we'll have to give him even more credit going forward. He will be lower owned. Like, I might have to get at least a little bit over the field. Sabres got him projected around 6 to 7% ownership. Honestly, I don't think it's going to be much higher than that for Cole Reagans. Part of the problem for me with him, obviously, the matchup's the main thing, but there's just so many pitchers I like on this slate that, going up against this Astros team wasn't something I really wanted to do. But yeah, I think I might have to get around the field at least on Mr. Reagans. He's just so good, and at that low ownership, yeah, he's certainly capable, I think, of dominating just about any lineup. Any bats here, Steve? Royals and Astros?
I don't think so. I'm not. I ended up getting off of Javier in my pool. But Kansas City, I don't have a ton of interest in. Maybe one-offs. It's just the park is so bad when it's not hot there.
Yeah.
This is going to be a full avoid for me for bats, and I'm going to play some Reagans in my 20 lineups.
I'll mix in some Royals bats. Javier, obviously a fastball heavy guy. He does give up home runs. I'm not going to stack, but like MJ Melendez, 3,400, swinging a really, really good bat to start this season. I think he could take Javier deep, but not going crazy, not full stacking the Royals. But yeah, MJ Melendez, my favorite one-off from that team, and probably not going to the Astros here either. Enough respect to Reagans that I'll be looking elsewhere for bats on this slate. Let's get to the next game. We've got Twins and Dodgers. Total sitting at 8 in this game. Tyler Glasnow versus Louis Varland. Young Twins pitcher. He's got some talent. He looks pretty good out there. And Glasnow is interesting. I mean, I think his stuff is totally fine based on everything that I've looked at. But weirdly, the strikeouts really haven't quite been there yet for Glasnow, despite some decent matchups. He get up to 7 strikeouts over 6 innings against San Francisco, so that was a little bit better, but haven't seen the truly dominant Glasnow that we sometimes saw, obviously, in Tampa Bay. He does get a Twins team, though, that I mean, they've kind of overtaken the Mariners as bottom of the barrel in almost every category against right-handed pitching. So looks like a pretty awesome spot for Glasnow. Obviously cold, or actually not that cold. Decent weather in Minnesota, but still a decent place to pitch for sure. Glasnow, I think, is one of the 3 pitchers that, at least that I'm considering for kind of SB1 on this slate. We'll get to the other 2 briefly here. Where do you stand on Glasnow? Where do you rank him? He is very expensive, over 10K on both DraftKings and FanDuel. And then I assume no interest in Varland against the Dodgers, but correct me if I'm wrong. And then any interest in going up against Varland with some of those big Dodgers bats? Over to you, Steve, Dodgers and Twins.
Yeah, Glasnow. I think the big K performances are coming. It's a perfect spot for it here. Like you said, against the Twins, 4th highest strikeout rate in baseball against right-handed pitching so far. 27th weighted runs created plus, 27th in ISO. We haven't seen it yet, but we know it's coming. I think the most encouraging thing, DC, that we saw last time was the 100 pitches from him. Like if he's going to go 100 pitches, he's going to have 10 plus K outings. Often enough that he's going to earn that salary, right? So love Glasnow here. Yeah, he's the highest upside arm on the slate. And then, yeah, the Dodgers bats. Varland, I think, like you said, has talent. He's had a really tough time with the long ball in the major leagues. He gave up a ton of bombs last year, over 2 per 9 last year in 68 innings. Gave up at least 1 in his first start. And the Dodgers, again, this is another expensive stack on a slate with cores in a great spot. So, the Dodgers are tough to stack unless you include the back half of the lineup. Chris Taylor, Lux, Outman, all under 4K. Really like hunting power against Varland here with the Dodgers. And I think that, just with so much going to Arizona, I think the Dodgers are in a good spot here. Winds are blowing out a bit. Dodgers are fifth in ISO against right-handers so far this season. That checks out. So yeah, I'll be on Dodgers bats here and Glass now for sure.
Yeah, similar to me. I mean, one of the things that you can pick on Glass now with is speedy guys, but the Twins don't really run at all. So like Buxton and then maybe Castro, if you were trying to get a little bit cute against Glass now, you could go there. I don't think I'm going there just because Glasnow is so good himself, and it's not enough just the steal upside. Yeah, I mean, Shohei Ohtani in particular looks just absolutely dialed in right now. Multi-hit games, 5 straight games. He's homered in 3 of the last 5 games as well. Hasn't been below 10 DraftKings points in any of those 5, obviously. So he is my favorite bat if you're going to the Dodgers, who I do think will be – I'm not going to say they're going to be unowned, obviously, but I do think they'll be – I can look it up here in terms of – they've got – sub 10%. Ohtani leading the way in terms of ownership. That makes sense to me. And everybody else, maybe around 5% or lower. So, yeah, I think pretty good night to get contrarian with the Dodgers stack if that's something you want to do. I know Varland, a good young pitcher, but I think the Dodgers come out on top against Mr. Varland tonight. That's 5 games, so about halfway through the slate. Do a little housekeeping reminder for you guys to hit the like button. We do these shows completely free, 6 days a week. All we ask for is that little button. Hit that thumbs up. It does help us bring you guys these shows pretty much every day here on the YouTube channel. And if you do want to sign up for Run Peter Sports, now is a good time to do so. We've got Masters Week coming up on Thursday. Going to be fantastic. NBA playoffs on the way. Steve, your awesome college basketball season just wrapped up last night. So I'm sure you're kind of ready to go full on baseball mode, being done with college basketball. But we got everything you need over at runpetersports.com. Huge UFC card Saturday. Really everything you need, any sport, we've got you covered. You can use promo code DC15 for 15% off your first weekly or monthly payment. All right, enough of the business shenanigans. Let's get to the next game on the slate. Philadelphia and the St. Louis Cardinals. This is another one of the starting pitchers in Zach Wheeler, who I do think you could make a case for him being the top option on this slate. The Cardinals, another team struggling against right-handed pitchers, high strikeout rate, not doing much damage. Good park to pitch in for sure in St. Louis. And Wheeler has been excellent, typically excellent to start the year. 6 innings against both the Braves and the Reds. 10 strikeouts against the Reds last time out. Did give up a couple runs, but has looked fantastic. 89 and 93 pitches in those 2. Wouldn't be surprised to see him go over 100 in this game if things are going well. Strike thrower, I mean, we know what to expect from Zach Wheeler. His velocity down a little bit, but both those games were really cold, and the results were there anyway. So I'm giving him a pass on those. It's, with all the injuries, you do kind of worry just about any sign, but I'm going to give him a pass, at least for this game. And I'm expecting big things from Wheeler. I think it's close between Wheeler and Glasnow in terms of upside on this slate. Interested to hear where you stand between those 2 guys. And we do have Sonny Gray making his Cardinals debut. Had a little hamstring injury in spring training that pushed him back a little bit. I'm seeing around 65 pitches for Sonny Gray, which for me takes him out of play. But I'm not really high on these Phillies bats either. Kind of Zach Wheeler or bust for me in this game. What about you, Steve? Phillies and Cardinals.
Yeah, same here. I'm going to have no bats in this game, in this park. Another great pitcher's park, especially early in the season. Got to have a ton of interest in Wheeler here. Off to a good start of the season. Lowest SEER on the slate through 2 starts at 2.25. 15-1 strikeout to walk ratio is just awesome. And now gets the big park upgrade for pitchers against a team, like you said, that's really struggling out of the gate. It's going to keep attacking these teams who haven't figured it out yet to start the season. I think Wheeler versus Glasnow is interesting. Like you said, I slightly prefer Glasnow just because I think that he's got more games where he just nukes and goes for like 30 plus DK than Wheeler does in his bag. So I think it's close, but if I had to pick one, I think it's Glasnow. Only a $500 difference there. Actually, on FanDuel, Glasnow is $600 less than Wheeler over there. So, I think they're both going to be rightly popular here. I'm going to have a ton of both of these guys. I think Wheeler, super confident in him here. And also the reason why I'm not on any George Kirby here is I just want as much Glasnow, Wheeler, and a guy that we're going to talk about next, Eovaldi, as I can get on this slate.
Yeah, the Phillies bullpen, very, very worn out right now. I believe their top 3 relievers, Alvarado, Hoffman, Seranthony Dominguez, all will be unavailable for this game. So I do think, you talked about the upside of Glasnow. I think Wheeler's got like kind of sneaky 7, 8, potentially complete game type of upside against this Cardinals team. Wouldn't be shocked to see them really push Wheeler into the hundreds, give their bullpen a rest. And we know Wheeler certainly capable of that type of outing, can go deep. And I think he'll be asked to do so tonight, assuming things are going well, which I really do think they will. I would be pretty surprised if Wheeler doesn't come out with at least a solid performance. And I do think upside to go very deep into the game against the St. Louis Cardinals. Let's get to the second half of the slate. You mentioned it, Nathan Eovaldi, who is the third pitcher who I think you could make a case for being the SP1 overall on this slate. Maybe not quite the upside of especially Glasnow and to some extent Wheeler, but a really strong matchup against the Oakland A's, obviously. Just not a very good team. I do think their hitting is definitely better than their pitching overall, but still a matchup to attack for Eovaldi. He looks back, fully healthy. He kind of limped to the finish a little bit last year. He had the injury, I think, in July or August, and the velocity was down when he came back. It's all the way back up this year. He's looked fantastic, especially in that last outing against the Rays. 7 strong innings, no runs, 8 strikeouts. Big game from Eovaldi. Now he gets another awesome matchup at home, and I think Eovaldi, as long as he can stay healthy, is going to be a really strong pitcher. He does have health issues that crop up all the time, but right now he looks fantastic. He's a strike thrower, and this is obviously a very strong matchup against the A's. So 8,800 for Eovaldi. You do get a nice little discount from Glasnow and Wheeler. I do think Eovaldi is going to be highly owned. I think it'll be close between he and Rodon, maybe for highest owned pitcher on the slate. But in on Eovaldi, and then the Rangers bats look pretty good too against Alex Wood, who just doesn't have much left in the tank, in my opinion. And then the A's bullpen behind Wood is certainly nothing to overlook, especially because Wood typically only going to go 4 or 5 innings most starts. So in on Texas, in on Eovaldi, and expecting kind of a lopsided game here. What about you, Steve? Texas and Oakland.
Yeah, same. I ended up using Texas on my main last night. It got off to such a sweet start. They scored 5 runs like the first 7 batters. And then I'm not sure they had another base runner the rest of the game. So tilting there. Yeah,
you think you're out for the races? You think you're going to ship, and you just get nothing for 9 innings? Crazy.
Yeah, both of the pitchers crush. Barrios and Phillies guy. But yeah, so anyways, going right back to Texas here. They've got a bunch of cheap bats that really make a lot work. It just kind of sucks that 3 of them are third base only eligible. So we've got Smith, Duran, and then the rookie Davis Wenzel's making his debut tonight, all third base only, all under 3K. So interesting spot here for Texas. We've got no Seager in the lineup. Their beat reporters just confirmed that it's just a standard full day off there. So scheduled day off for Seager. There isn't anything to worry about with him moving forward. With you on Eovaldi, he looked awesome in that last start. Like you said, kind of whimpered down the stretch, was battling injuries, had a swing strike rate over 20% in that start against the Rays. That is awesome. Much better matchup here. We talked about the Wheeler duration. Eovaldi's a guy that Bochy just kind of lets go as deep as he can, really. We saw him go 7 innings last time. So, yeah, Eovaldi, I think, is also in consideration for SP1 on the slate. I think you could go into this slate with him as your SP1 and feel pretty good about it. Any of those 3 guys that we talked about in the last couple games, I'd be fine with as your SP1. So, yeah, lots of Eovaldi here. And then really like the spot for Texas. I like the spot and the price of the bats more than I do anything else. Like I hate that Seager's not in there, and I hate that 3 of the 9 guys are only third baseman on DraftKings. But everything else is looking up for Texas against Wood, and like you said, this awful Oakland pen.
Yeah, Wenzel, who I really was not aware of until today, kind of doesn't look like a big prospect or anything like that, but he did hit 30 home runs in AAA last year, and he already has 3 on the young minor league season. And he's 2K, right, against a lefty, Alex Wood. Could be potentially pinch hit for in this game, but at 2K, if you need some savings, he clearly has a little bit of pop. Obviously, the matchup is good. So, yeah, Wenzel, I think, is certainly a reasonable play if you do need a punt at third base. Waiting for Wyatt Langford to get going. This seems like a good spot for him. Heim. I mean, really, this whole lineup, I think, looks pretty good for Texas for me. I bet they do some damage against Wood and in the bullpen. Hopefully, more than just the first inning for the Texas Rangers tonight. Hopefully, they keep it going for all
that was so annoying
this time around. That's Oakland and Texas. Another reminder, hit the like button. We got a good crew watching today. 4 more games to talk about. We will do favorite stacks, pitcher, and maybe a couple home run calls as well to end the show. So we get the likes up a little bit. So get on that. We'll move on to the next game on the slate, Arizona and the Colorado Rockies. Another game in Coors Field was pretty high scoring last night, and I would expect, frankly, more of the same. Decent weather out here in Denver, and the Diamondbacks, who have a little bit of a strange lineup tonight. No Ketel Marte, a bunch of their platoon bats are in there, but anybody, I think, can hit Cal Quantrill, who has like the lowest strikeout rate of any pitcher in baseball if you look at the last couple of seasons. And I mean, this guy's gone, he's negative on the season so far, negative 2.8 against Arizona back in the second day of the season, gave up 5 earned runs, gave up 4 earned runs over 4 innings to Chicago. Now, both of those are tough matchups, but so is this one. And both of those were not in Coors Field, which further is going to hurt his strikeout rate. I mean, you almost know for certain, Steve, that like the Diamondbacks, at the very least, are going to be putting the ball in play over and over again against Quantrill. And in Coors Field, right, that accentuates hitting, batting average of balls in play by far more than any other park. It's hard for me to imagine they don't get a couple of big rallies going against Quantrill. Diamondbacks are going to be, I assume, extremely popular tonight. Looking at ownerships, I mean, probably between 15 and 20% across the board on the D-backs bats, but I mean, 15 to 25%, I should say. But I don't know. I'm willing to eat that chalk on Arizona. It just seems like such a can't miss spot for these guys. There's good pitching to pay up for. I don't know. I do certainly like to avoid the chalk when I can, but I can't jump off the D-backs entirely here. Quantrill just so bad bullpen behind him, all that stuff. So in on the D-backs, neither of these pitchers are in play for me, and I don't mind going back to the Rockies either against Merrill Kelly, a decent pitcher, but one that I would still expect to struggle in Colorado. Where do you stand, Steve? Obviously, the kind of the big question mark here is what do you want to do with the chalkiest offense on the slate?
Yeah, biggest question on the slate. I think it's not if you're playing it, it's probably how you're playing it and like what you're doing in different types of contests. We've seen these spots in like the 121 single entry come in, 40 to 50% for these Coors bats. So I think in single entry, I think they're a better fade than if you're playing a bunch of lineups. I wouldn't fully fade this if you're playing more than one lineup. Single entry, I could see it. You mentioned the platoon bats. Jock Peterson hitting third is going to be super, super popular here. I think he's probably the one that I'm most willing, like the expensive guy up top that I'm most willing to fade just because of the platoon risk. Like if he comes in 30-some% owned and gets 2 at-bats, you're looking good there. Obviously an awesome play. That's why he's going to be super owned.
Real quick on that, because that is a big question mark. I mean, some pitch at risk for Peterson, both Peterson, Jock Peterson and Jace Peterson, and then Jake McCarthy, I would say, is the other guy who could potentially be pinch hit for here. I will say, though, I believe you have the same data. I think the Rockies just have one lefty in the pen. He is fresh, and I would assume will probably pitch in this game. But like he's a 1-inning guy in general, I believe. And the Diamondbacks have, I think, 5 lefties in the lineup. So he can't face them all. And listen, if he comes in early in the game, like certainly the Diamondbacks know he's the only lefty that they have. And the rest of the at-bats then would become against right-handed pitching, right? So there's a chance, I think a pretty decent chance that they just leave either Peterson or McCarthy in there against the lefty if it's early in the game. And if it's late in the game, then you've got your 3 or 4 bats anyway, right? So I am certainly one that wants to avoid pinch hit risk. And there is some here, but I'm not all that worried about it, especially given how good the spot is against Cal Quantrill to start the game.
Yeah, also like with Peterson, if they bring in a lefty to face him, the lefty's going to have to face Christian Walker and Gino Suarez right after that too.
Exactly.
So, and especially against a team like Colorado who doesn't have a great lefty in the pen anyways. I think that the bottom half of this lineup is interesting. We've seen these road spots at Coors where the top 4 or 5 guys are 40-some% in the 121 and the back half is like 10 to 15. So if you want to get different, those guys are cheap. Obvious great spot against Quantrill, who just doesn't miss any bats, like you said. The way that I might play them today in my 20, and I do this from time to time at Coors when I like other spots a lot, is limit them to 2 and 3 man stacks with teams like the Braves or the Dodgers or Texas. You still get some exposure there. You can still hunt the home runs. You can still get parts of the rallies there. It's kind of a slate by slate thing to me, but that's the way I'm leaning right now. But obviously, the best 5-man stack on the slate. If you wanted to go in on them, I would just go way overweight. I think if you're doing the 5-mans there. So love the whole lineup here. Jace Peterson, the guy who's hit well against righties in the past. You have both him and Blaze Alexander at short. Just a really interesting lineup today with how they set it up. I think it makes for a really cool slate, honestly.
Yeah, I'm leaning the overweight route on the snakes tonight. I mean, just I've picked on Quantrill in both his outings so far, and it's like, why would I let it would just be ownership, but. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean that's the only argument to not 5-man.
The only one. And yeah, I just think they're going to do a lot of damage. I might have to head down to Coors Field to cheer on my 150 Snakes lineup. Could be a fun time there. It doesn't take long to get cheap tickets in Coors Field. You can sit behind home plate for like $30 at this point. So it should be a nice night in Coors Field. Debating doing that. We'll see. Don't want to. It's like a catch-22, Steve. It's like I got all these lineups, and so I kind of want to go cheer them on. But then like you don't want to be stuck if there's like late news, right? And you can't swap and all that stuff. So.
Well, the good thing if you play 155 mans is you're only changing the same guys on the same team.
Yeah, that is true. So yeah, we'll see. I haven't made a decision yet. But might end up in Coors Field tonight to cheer on some D-backs and some Rockies as well. Did you mention, are you in on the Rockies tonight and any guys you're particularly targeting there?
Man, so the Rockies were my last scratch last night as far as the stacks, and I felt really bad watching the game, missing the boat after we had talked about the Gallon stuff too.
Gallen was good. So I was wrong about that, but the Rockies did do pretty well against the bullpen.
Right. I just think, I don't know, they're just not as cheap as I want them to be. And I want to be heavy on these other like low owned spots. Like I really like the Yankees here, really like Atlanta, Dodgers, spots like that. So probably no Rockies for me tonight, but obviously a good play at all times there at Coors, where they're much, much better. Last year, they were just atrocious on the road. As a team as a whole, I think they won 20-some games on the road and almost 500 at home. So
it's like that every year for them. They're actually a good offense when they are at home. Obviously, Coors Field not only makes them better when they're there, but I think it hinders them when they do go on the road. Just a weird situation, obviously, with the altitude here in Denver. All right, 3 more games to talk about. Let's go to Tampa Bay and the LA Angels next. We've got Patrick Sandoval on the hill against Aaron Savale pitching for the Rays. Sandoval had, I think, an awful first start. Did bounce back pretty well against the Marlins with 7 strikeouts. 7,100 for him. I guess you could make the case. I think there's too many good pitchers on the slate. I do like Savale quite a bit. He's looked really, really good through 2 starts, 2 relatively tough matchups against Toronto and the Texas Rangers. Got through 6 full innings each of the starts, 86 and 87 pitches. I do think he's capable of going longer than that. It's just, if you get through 6 clean innings in the upper 80s and pitches early in the season, they're probably going to pull you. But I do think, in a pinch, he could go 95, close to 100 pitches perhaps. I like the matchup for him, frankly. Mike Trout is out of his mind right now, but, other than that, there's really nobody I fear in this Angels lineup. So I'm expecting good things out of Savale. I do think he's going to go somewhat overlooked on this slate. I'm pulling up the pitcher's ownership now. Savale, Sabres got him at 5% on DraftKings. I would guess he'll come in a little bit higher than that. Luke guessed, I didn't check the umpires yet. If he does get Bill Miller, it's a nice bump for Savale as well. And then on
he does.
FanDuel,
yeah, I just checked. He does.
Yeah, Bill Miller, maybe the best pitchers umpire in all of baseball. And on FanDuel, he's 9,200. He's going to go completely overlooked there. Obviously, kind of priced with the class nows, Wheelers, and Eovaldi's of the world. But listen, he can go 6 innings, right? Get the quality start. He can get a win, and the strikeouts have been there for him as well. So I'll take a shot on some Savale, even on FanDuel, where I think you're going to get him, 2 or 3% owned. That seems like a pretty good play to me. What about you, Steve? What do you see between the Rays and the Angels here?
Yes, Savale, just another guy that the Rays have picked up and turned into a better pitcher. They're just so good at this. He's gotten off to a great start, like you said. The strikeouts have been their 31% strikeout rate, backed up with a 3.02 Sierra. You mentioned the Trout thing. Outside of Trout, this lineup's just been really bad. Top 10 in strikeout rate, bottom 5 in weighted runs created plus in the split. I don't have a ton of interest in guys under 8K on this slate. I think he's definitely my favorite sub 8K pitcher on DraftKings, sitting there at 7.7. I've got a bunch of interest there. The interest went up with Bill Miller being confirmed as the home plate umpire. And I actually think, I think that the Rays are okay here. I've been trying to point out when we're on these shows the spots that these Saber simulations like more than their betting team totals. They have the Rays team total up at 5.2 on Saber. Saber's been fairly good at identifying these spots where they're projecting the teams to score more than Vegas does. So I had more interest in the Rays before the Bill Miller thing. That could be the tiebreaker that keeps me off, but they are going to run out 9 righties against Sandoval. So I think the Rays are at least interesting, probably more of a play if you're 150ing this slate, though.
Yeah, makes sense to me. We did get the Angels lineup fairly recently here. It's expected. Bunch of good lineups for Savale. Seeing him projected, yeah, like I said, 1 or 2% owned on FanDuel. If that's the case with Big Bill Miller behind the plate, I'll be way over the field. This is probably on both sides, frankly.
DC, so I just refreshed Sabre after the Bill Miller, and the Rays simulated team totals went from 5.2 to 4.4. So scratch that. They're no longer on the Rays.
That seems frankly like a very large adjustment, but yeah,
right.
Bill Miller, no question about it. Really good pitcher's umpire, and honestly, a pitcher like Savali, who doesn't have maybe the most lights out stuff in the world, can benefit even more from a wide strike zone, which you should get tonight with Bill Miller behind the plate. All right, last two games of the night. This one at 9:45 Eastern time. It is the Washington Nationals and the San Francisco Giants. Kyle Harrison on the hill for the Giants. We saw the Snell struggle in his debut. Certainly, Harrison is an interesting pitcher. He's a high strikeout guy, can walk people, and can give up home runs too. So he's kind of the three true outcome type of pitcher. I do think he's got some interesting upside at 7,600 on DraftKings. Pretty good leash on him to get up to 87 pitches over 5 innings against the Dodgers. Held his own against the Dodgers and San Diego, two pretty tough matchups, both on the road. He gets to pitch at home here, obviously, against the Nationals team. They do okay making contact, but really have not hit for much production at all, especially against lefties on the young season. So, yeah, Harrison, another, I think, pretty good contrarian option. And then the Nationals will start Joan Adon, who has pitched, about 100 innings for them over the last 3 seasons and has an ERA over 6.5. Started this year in the minor leagues, has not done well in his brief innings, only pitching today because of the injury to Josiah Gray. And this feels very similar to me, Steve, on the guy pitching for the Astros yesterday after the Framber scratching, where Adon's pitching not out of merit or because they want him to pitch, but because it's his turn in the AAA rotation. He's got some big league experience, so they call him up. And if it goes as badly as it did for Henley for the Astros as it does for Adon, which I do think is in play, probably going to want some Giants. Hopefully they won't fizzle out as bad as the Rangers did. But I wasn't on the Giants too much against Josiah. I had to change that some. They're very interesting to me here. Team total near 5 against Adon. I'll say this as well. Adon allowed 9 stolen bases. Basically, those were 9 for 9 against him last year in just 50 innings. So that'd be like 35-ish stolen bases on a full innings season. So yeah, the Giants don't have that much speed, unfortunately, but Jung-Hoo Lee at the top of the lineup, I assume, I think is interesting. Estrada gets a bump, maybe a Lamont Wade. But yeah, Adon, terrible. He's even worse against lefties. You can run on him. And this looks like a pretty damn good spot for the Giants. Talk to me, Giants and Nationals.
Yeah, and on Giants here, I just want to echo what I said on the Friday show with the new manager, Bob Melvin over Gabe Kapler. They're just not going to pinch hit as much this season. We've seen it basically just be Lamont Wade platooning with Austin Slater as the main pinch hit risk. Kapler, obviously a huge tinker, as we know, and one of the main reasons why we haven't played much, of the Giants stacks over the last couple of years. But now with an older school guy, Bob Melvin, it's just not going to be as much of an issue. So yeah, not the best park here, but the lineup's cheap throughout. And like you said, Adon just not a major league pitcher. He's already proven that to us. So yeah, I think the Giants are really fun stack tonight. If you're playing the night slate, I think they're a great stack on that slate as well. So I removed the Rays and added the Giants on my list based on what's happened over the last hour or two.
Any interest in Kyle Harrison against this Nationals team?
Yes. So Harrison also in my pool here. Like you said, young, talented pitcher, really high strikeout rate in the minors. We haven't seen it spike yet, but the talent's there. I believe in the upside. The Nats have just been atrocious against left-handed pitching. They've been decent against righties, but bottom 2 in the league in both weighted runs created plus and ISO against lefties. And yeah, it's just a perfect park for the style of pitching that he has. You know, he pitches up in the zone. Lots of fly balls are going to go to die in that park. He's an extreme fly ball pitcher. So he's the guy that I'm going to use a lot when he's at home, and probably either avoid using as a pitcher and target depending on the park that he's in on the road. So yeah, I'm going to have Harrison in my pool as starting pitcher tonight.
Makes sense to me. Let's get to the last game on the slate. We'll do kind of the special stuff, stacks, pitchers, home run calls, that stuff. After we get through Chicago and the San Diego Padres, we have Joe Musgrove pitching for San Diego. He started off pretty rough in his first 2 outings, but did bounce back. Last time out against St. Louis looked pretty good there, I thought. 7 strikeouts over 6 innings. To take on this Cubs team who, you know, I said it yesterday on the show, didn't get everything right, but yeah, I didn't understand why Yu Darvish was coming in so popular against a Cubs team whose offense has looked awesome to start the year, not striking out, taking walks, and they've had some pretty tough matchups too against the Dodgers pitching staff. So I'm in on this Cubs offense. They did let me down at the end last night, but yeah, I do think they're another kind of way off the radar. Nobody's going to use them against Joe Musgrove. I do think Musgrove himself looks like he's going to get at least a little bit of ownership, which again will be a complete fade for me. I completely clicked Yu Darvish out of my pool over 150 lineups last night. I'll do the same with Joe Musgrove. I do actually think Musgrove a better pitcher at this point than Darvish, but I just have no interest in a 15 to 20% Musgrove on this slate. So I do think it is a spot where if you want, you can go with the stack against him. And then Ben Brown pitching for the Chicago Cubs. Talented, but, you know, inexperienced, kind of wild right-hander, 2-pitch pitcher, but they're both good, especially his breaking ball. Decent fastball as well for Ben Brown. His stuff does grade out well, and he is still minimum 4K on DraftKings. I don't think he's in play on FanDuel on this slate at 5,700. Just never going to get you the quality start. I wouldn't expect more than 60 to 70 pitches. I think for Brown is possible, but the talent is there and the price is right. And if you do want to stack up, if you do want to get the big bats on this slate, Brown certainly allows you to do that. So I will have some exposure to Mr. Ben Brown. What about you, Steve? Padres and Cubs.
Yeah, couldn't believe the Cubs lost that game last night. That was wild. They were up, eight to nothing? Something like that. Yeah, interesting spot here. Don't love the park, but yeah, Musgrove is a guy that I've come off of during the day as the day's gone along. I just think that this Cubs lineup is going to be really pesky all season. Well, as long as they're healthy. They've got pop. They can ruin a kind of expensive starter's night in one inning here, especially the top 4 or 5 of the lineup there with Happ, Suzuki, Bellinger, Morel, Swanson. You got some pop. You got guys who can steal bags. I just think that they're going to continue to be pesky. And then, I actually X'd out Musgrove for this Cubs starter right before the show, just because, I do have the Braves in my pool. I do have the Dodgers in my pool. You can make some pretty gnarly, like Braves, Dodgers, Braves, D-backs teams if you use this cheap guy. He looked really good in that last start. I used some of him, and he's still 4K. It's a big slate. If he gives you like a 5, you're probably screwed. But I think he can go 4 or 5 innings on this slate. He's in the rotation until Steele is back. So, I don't think that they're just going to use him as like an opener. I think that they're going to try to have him.
He was a starter in the minor leagues, and he's going to be stretched out. He's not going to give you, 100 pitches today, but 52 6 days ago, I think 65 to 70 is my guess.
There were some questions earlier in our chat about, is he just going to be an opener or a starter? I think that I lean towards him continuing to stretch out and taking the rotation spot until Steele comes back. So Yeah, I'm going to have him in my pool in this awesome pitcher's park here, specifically in those Dodgers and Braves 5-man lineups.
Yeah, it makes sense. And Steven Brown, the Sabres still has him projected very, very low owned. And I agree with most of their ownership projections tonight so far. So I'm sure he's going to come in more owned than the 1% they've got him for. But I mean, if you actually told me Brown was for sure going to be under 5%, I would play a ton of him, because it's not like there's not bets to choose from, right? Like the big guns from Arizona, we've got the Dodgers, we got the Braves, like you mentioned. I mean, yeah.
Also, I think there's a pretty big gap. Like once you get to like the Savali Harrison, there's nothing that I want to play between Brown and those two guys.
Right. So you get entirely unique lineups, right? If you play Brown, and honestly, I don't mind pairing up with another cheap pitcher just to get completely different and get all the big bats when obviously most people won't be able to do so. So I think an interesting game theory stuff there with Ben Brown. He could obviously completely blow up, but I do think he's at least got the upside to give you 15 fantasy points is certainly possible for Ben Brown.
I think if we get 12 here, you're happy, right? Like
I would play a ton of them if you guarantee me 12 fantasy points.
Yeah,
sure.
If you get 10 to 12, that's going to be enough here.
Yeah, obviously we'll need your big bats to come through, but hey, that's the game we play. That's all 11 games. We will do kind of the fun stuff. Let's do, Steve, what we've been doing is favorite stack overall and then favorite contrarian stack. I'll go first, give you at least a second to think about it. Not contrarian at all, but my favorite stack is the Diamondbacks. They will be the team that I have the most of. I know they're going to be chalky. I think it's good chalk tonight. And then contrarian stack, I will go with the San Francisco Giants, who will get some ownership. I think it's going to be too low against Joan Adon. They're pretty cheap. Can get some good pitchers with them, and I think they're going to do some damage on the base paths and with the bats against Mr. Adon. So D-backs and Giants for me. Over to you, Steve. Your favorite stack overall, and then one kind of GPP or contrarian stack.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to Texas here. They let me down after the hot start, but they get another great spot, arguably a better spot tonight against Oakland. You got cheap bats throughout the lineup. And then my contrarian stack is going to be the Yankees here. Puck's a guy that we like the talent, but these young guys, when they're not getting things figured out, sometimes it can take a while. And I want to jump on at what looks like super low ownership in Yankee Stadium against a guy who's clearly not pitching confidently, can't throw strikes right now. So yeah, he's probably not a guy that would be stacking against all season, but right now I kind of want to try to ride the wave of perhaps something's wrong, So you're getting the Yankees power bats that are red hot in Yankee Stadium against a guy who's clearly going to be volatile at least for the time being.
Yeah, makes sense to me. We'll go kind of your most important pitcher is the way I've been phrasing it, the guy that you think you'll be maybe most overweight on compared to the field. I think my guy, there's a couple of them, but I'm going to have a lot of Aaron Savale. Going to play him on FanDuel too, where he's going to have no ownership whatsoever. I'm a believer in what I've seen so far, and I really like the matchup against the Angels. Should come in around 10%, I believe, on DraftKings, and much lower than that on FanDuel. Seems like a pretty strong play to me in that mid-tier price range. Aaron Savale will be one of my most important pitchers tonight. What about you, Steve? Pitcher you'll think you might be most overweight on?
I was going to go with Savale, but I'll go with Reagans here, who we talked about him earlier. Guy, I just want to keep betting on the talent. I'd probably stack Houston more than most throughout the season, but with the reverse splits against a team full of righties, I think that he's worth the shot for the upside there at 8K. I think this is a guy who we're going to be playing DC a lot, like in the low to mid 9Ks as the season goes on. So I'm going to take the shot at low ownership just because I'm playing 20 lineups here. I probably would not be using him in 1 to 3.
Makes sense to me. We'll do home run call, then we'll do overall play of the day. Then we'll get on out of here, get building our lineups. Got about an hour before lock still. I'll go first on the home run call. I'll say the youngster making his MLB debut, Mr. Davis Wenzel. I think he gets one against Alex Wood or that bad Oakland Pen. Talked about the power he's shown in the minor leagues. 2K flat, and I think Davis Wenzel gets one for the Rangers. My home run call. What about you, Steve? Home run call for the people.
I'm going to go to the Braves here since we haven't had enough Braves love on the show. I'll go Matt Olson with my home run call against Hauser, who just gets beat to hell by left-handed bats. Matt Olson red hot in that Arizona series, so I'm going to say that he keeps it going here and hits a home run tonight for us.
All right, Matt Olson, always a good pick for the home run call, that's for sure. Overall play of the day, I will go with who should be the Giants leadoff man, Mr. Jung-Hoo Lee. Looks pretty good so far to start the season. Got more power, I think, than people realize. Can run a little bit, and absolutely love the matchup against Adon and that Nationals pen as well. Over to you, Steve, your play of the day.
Yeah, a guy that I talked about right off the top of the show that I was bumping up over basically everyone else on his team. I'm going to go with Michael Harris, sticking with the Braves there. Another left-handed bat against Hauser.
Absolutely love it. Michael Harris, another good call there. Hopefully some Braves coming through for Mr. Boynton tonight. Should be another fun night of baseball. We do appreciate all you guys watching. Hit the like button on your way out if you haven't yet done so. And the show, I believe, will be back at the normal time. Tomorrow should be an early Thursday show. I'll be here all week breaking it down for you guys and hopefully see some of you guys up top the leaderboards tonight. That'll do it for us. For Steve Boynton, I am Draft Cheat. We're out of here.